Theodore Roosevelt coined one of my favorite phrases. It goes, I forgot what it is. Former US President Theodore Roosevelt coined one of my favorite phrases. It goes, speak softly and carry a big stick. And that's a saying which I think applies perfectly to this.
It's the new £100,000 Mercedes GLE 53. And the shocking news here is that it's now a plug-in hybrid. Okay, not that shocking. With its combination of a 3-litre petrol engine alongside a large traction battery and a powerful electric motor, it promises plenty of quiet, eco-friendly calm before, on your command, unleashing a ferocious storm.
A bit like this. Sport Plus, brake, gas, go! Oh yes. So that's the big stick part. I mean, it is an AMG after all, so it makes sense. Whew, it does shift. So the internal combustion engine makes 450 horsepower by itself, but then you've also got an electric motor which lives inside the 9-speed gearbox, giving you an extra 134 horsepower. Together, they make a total of 544 horses. This thing shifts.
If you're thinking the math doesn't quite math, that's because the engine and e-motor never make their maximum power figures simultaneously. But they do collab closely enough to allow 0 to 62 in 4.7 seconds and an electronically limited top speed of 155 miles an hour.
The acceleration is very, very decent. I mean, we live in a world now where there's Kias and Hyundais that will leave it for dead, but I'm definitely not complaining. And also, listen to this. See that when I lift off? Got a few little pops and bangs there. There is a little bit of synthetic sound as well, but it's not as bad as I expected. It's certainly not as bad as some of Mercedes' other cars. S63, I'm looking at you. This thing, yeah, bit of a hooligan.
So, big stick, tick. What about the whole speak softly thing? Well, it might have petrol running through its veins, but this is the first GLE that also comes with a really healthy dose of electrons.
A minute ago, I was in Sport Plus mode, making all types of noise, and I've just twisted this knob, and suddenly, silence. All right, not complete silence. There is a bit of synthetic noise in there, but it adds a little bit of character. But yeah, the engine's running at 0 RPM. And now, I'm in an electric car. An electric AMG.
And unlike most plug-in hybrids, which have a fairly limited EV range and performance, the battery in the GLE provides enough juice to travel up to 53 miles.
Now that's obviously ideal for your town driving, but guess what? It's also pretty good even when you're on the motorway. Let me give you some context about this battery. Like I said before, it's 31.2 kilowatt hours. And if you're not a nerd, here's what that means. It's massive. It's about twice the size as the battery you get in most plug-in hybrids. In fact, it's bigger than the battery you get in some full electric cars. It's bigger than the battery than you get in the previous gen Nissan Leaf. Half the size of the battery you get in a Tesla Model Y. And that means it's got a load of energy which it is very keen to deploy. They say it's got a top speed of, well, in fact, let's find out, shall we? We've got a motorway. Let's send it. Here we go. 55, 60, 65, 70 miles an hour. And I'm afraid you're gonna have to use your imagination here. I'm definitely doing 70 miles an hour. But let's just say this car has no trouble keeping up with people who might even want to indulge in a little bit of Autobahn shenanigans, shall we say. Mercedes reckon, and definitely not my dashboard, that this will do 87 miles an hour. Plenty quick.
It even charges as quickly as a proper EV. Most plug-in hybrids will only allow AC charging at 7 kilowatts, and that's no problem because they usually have small batteries. But the GLE will also AC charge at 11 kilowatts and rapid DC charge at 60 kilowatts. Again, quicker than an old school Leaf. A 0 to 80% battery charge will happen in 20 minutes, or you can top it up overnight from flat in around 5 hours. But what about the looks? Well, it's a GLE, and this 2024 model hasn't changed significantly from the one that came before, but it still looks fantastic. The 53AMG does have a slightly different lower front bumper with body-colored cladding, slightly different cooling ducts to keep the powertrain chilled, along with updated headlights, the nice bright matrix LED type, in case you're wondering. Down the side, you get 22-inch wheels, and also steps to help vertically challenged passengers get a leg up, plus new badges. Speaking of which, there's a lovely GLE 53 badge with red outlining at the rear. But it's not all good news on this hybrid, because it's a hybrid, and hybrids are sometimes compromised because
you might have worked it out. You see, because this car is a plug-in hybrid, boot space is massively affected. The standard GLE has 630 litres, this 490, and there's no underfloor storage. And the charging cables come in these massive bags taking up space, and you do want to take them with you. The other big problem is that this car doesn't have the option of 7 seats. So if you've got multiple children, that is potentially a big deal breaker. Although I suppose not everyone is quite as fertile as I am.
Still, the interior space and quality is as good as ever. The rear is roomy with good head and leg room and a big panoramic glass roof. Up front, meanwhile, not much has changed, but it's also spacious and comfy with all the storage and connectivity you'd expect.
I'll show you some of my favorite bits. So first of all, you got this nice, big, chunky middle console with these grab handles that come in really handy when you're driving around corners and you want to hold on for dear life. These incorporate ambient lighting. Ambient lighting in general in the car is really good actually, and you can customize them across 64 different colors. That's the cool touch. It's also got these twin adjustable cup holders which can accommodate cups of different sizes, plus each one of these is heated or cooled. That's a nice touch. Nice big bins for storing all your rubbish, and also good infotainment. So these twin screens up top give you lots of clear information, including for the driver and also for your media playback. There are some things in here though that I just can't wrap my head around. For example, this new steering wheel looks lovely, but the problem with it is that it has loads of capacitive buttons, and by that I mean buttons you can accidentally press without really meaning it. And I'm not talking about things like accidentally adjusting the volume control. I'm talking about serious things like on these satellite buttons, accidentally putting the car in manual mode or turning off the traction control, which happens for me all too easily. I also can't understand this feature, right? You push this button over here and it allows you to adjust the passenger seat for some reason. So if your passenger is sitting comfortably, you can surreptitiously, while you're driving, adjust their seat and fold them in half for seemingly no reason whatsoever. Weird.
Other little annoyances? Sure, I got time. Once you put your phone in the wireless charger, it's almost impossible to get it back out unless you reach for it in a very specific way, just at the top right-hand side. Once you know, but still. The rear seats don't have solid pockets, just nets, so there's nowhere to hide your valuable items out of sight, except for in the glove box, which is smaller than it could be because it has a perfume dispenser inside, which I guarantee you no one will ever use. Oh, those side steps might be helpful for helping smaller people get in, but they collect dirt and mud, so when you get out again, they'll make your trousers filthy. Another one, the petrol cap doesn't open automatically when you push it, even if the car is unlocked. You'll have to remember to push a button on the door, and it takes an age before it eventually opens.
Guys, sorry to interrupt, but I've got a really important message. Every single month, Auto Trader give away a brand new electric car for free, and this month's prize is this, the Omoda E5. It's worth £33,000. It's got a 61 kilowatt hour battery pack. It's got a 273 mile range, and more importantly, it's free to one of you guys. That's right, hit the link down below, enter, and you could win that for nothing. Right, Rory, back to you. Okay, that's enough moaning. Let's get back to the way it drives, which is actually pretty good. I'm actually very impressed with this car. First of all, the seats are brilliant, really spacious, but you can adjust the bolsters and the lumbar support to suit you, and it's supportive. It also includes heating and cooling, plus a very good massage. It's even got an intensive mode, which I think they've named incorrectly. It should be called intrusive. Visibility in this car is also very good. It's a huge vehicle, this thing, but it's got windows absolutely everywhere, even in the corners at the rear, and that means seeing out of it is actually surprisingly easy. It's quiet too. I'll knock it out of sport mode and go back into EL for a second, and you can really hear they've added a load of extra sound deadening in order to minimize the amount of unwanted noise you might hear in terms of wind noise or suspension noise, and that makes a big difference. Refinement is on point. Okay, it's nowhere near as impressive as an E-Class Saloon because it's so tall and so heavy, but this is a nice car to drive.
Of course, it's an AMG, so you can all be forgiven for wanting to know whether this car acquits itself when you push it. And the good news is that for the most part, it ain't bad.
When you're in sport mode, it is quite fun. You got 540 odd angry horses straining at the leash. And it does move. Like I said earlier, there's lots of far more powerful cars, even SUVs, but not for 1 second am I thinking I want more power. This, it's rapid.
It's not quite as impressive in the Benz, where it feels more like a normal GLE rather than an AMG model. It does have rear wheel steer, but it lacks the active anti-roll stabilization that would provide the car with sufficient body control in these situations. You can actually feel it leaning in the corners.
I do like this gearbox as well. It does slap. You feel a nice little shove in the back, particularly when you're shifting from first to second, second to third, and third to fourth. Having said that, the steering is quite accurate. You don't feel like you're driving a barge, and you always feel like you know exactly where you're placing the car on the road. And if you're a little too enthusiastic, it does occasionally step into a little bit of accidental oversteer, shall we say. The first time it happens, it concentrates the mind, but it's good that this car has a little bit of a playful side. Honestly, one of the best things about it though is the fact it has that electric motor, which just makes it feel incredibly responsive. You don't feel like you need to wait for the engine to kick down to get you in that torque sweet spot. The car always feels ready to accelerate even when you're doing fairly low speeds. So right now, I'm in a low speed corner, get on the power, and instantly it's off down the road.
Is it as good as the top dog GLE 63? No. That car offers way more power, torque, and performance, especially in the corners. Is it as good as its rivals in the same performance bracket? Well, it's a compelling package, but it is worth noting that there are other very solid plug-in hybrids on the market. The Porsche Cayenne SE Hybrid handles better, and the cheaper BMW X5 xDrive 50e has an even longer electric range.
And then there's the price, which, let's face it, at £100,000 is a bit difficult to justify. But can you? Well, here's how I rate this car. I think on balance, this is the most well-rounded version of the GLE that Mercedes have built so far, because it does a little bit of everything. On the one hand, it does a passable impression of a full EV with all the efficiency, refinement, and running cost benefits that you might expect. That's the whole speak softly thing sorted. But then on the other hand, you twist the knob into Sport Plus mode and it becomes a proper AMG with all the noise, drama, theatre and fun that you might expect from this kind of car. Carry a big stick, bosh.
It's not perfect, but on balance, the GLE 53 is arguably as compelling and rounded as the Big Merc has ever been.